enough to do damage when people are sniping at you the whole time.
I would completely agree. As back in closed beta, brawling was my favorite thing. So with Run Hunt or Die, then, is it? Do you focus very much on knowing your team, or do you focus more on practicing just pounding out games? Sorry, not knowing your team, knowing the team you're up against. So when you're facing somebody new, do you try and do research on them, or is it more of just practice hard and just get the fundamentals down kind of thing?
Well, like Xander alluded to, when you know who you're fighting, you can sort of know their tendencies. For example, certain groups like to use the Jenner D over the Jenner F, and so they're bringing streaks, and you can counterfeit for that by bringing AMS on all your lights, and you're taking out a lot of their damage potential. Um, Against people who we don't know, we just tend to stick with what we like and not really fit to them and just play to our strengths.
One thing we're not mentioning really too is the maps, right? So there's a wide variety of different strategies that are going to get implemented on the different maps, and so depending on what you take, that random effect is going to have a big impact on what you do.
Actually, let's
currently the random maps are what's I think hamstringing a lot of different interesting comps that could be run. I know for a fact that Ed and LRMs right now are vastly underpowered or ineffective or something. But on certain maps and certain situations, for example, just throwing this out, they can be used to great effect. But since you're not able to correctly, you don't know what map you're going to play on, taking them is a huge risk. It's not really worth. It's oftentimes not worth it. Because if you drop on, say, Frozen City, well, you're pretty much done at that point because the enemy team can be right up on your throat or right down your throat before you have a chance to deploy the weapon effectively. Similarly, a lot of the I know especially for if you have a restriction of no jump jets or something like that, if you're trying to deploy mechs that don't have jump jets, for instance, Atlases, which are great walls for your other lighter armored mechs to hide behind. If you happen to get a Canyon Network, well, now you've got a really hard problem to deal with. Your Atlases can't move up and down the ridges as effectively as other mechs, and you have to reposition them to accommodate for that.
So that's actually a pretty good transition point to talking about the new map. Hold on one sec.
Looking for a transition point. Nailed it.
Well done. So the new map. I've only gotten to play the new map once, which makes me feel kind of bad. But how about you guys? Have you dropped it competitively at all? Have you played it personally? What are your thoughts?
We haven't. Blackstone Knights have not played it competitively yet, but we've dropped down it quite a bit.
I think it's one of the better balanced maps that's come out. It's definitely one of the prettier maps that have come out since we can actually see things, but there are slight imbalances between the sides, but I think that it does play out fairly well.
I would say spawning on the south side definitely gives you a pretty large advantage because you can only have one direction that the enemy can really come from. It's just north of you, whereas you spawn in the northeast, they can come through the pass in the south or all the way around the edge. I'd say the south side has a clear advantage. Not as bad as, say, spawning upper in River City, but it's not balanced. It's cool, though.
That was my first thought when I looked at it as well, was that I was super surprised by looking at where the actual conquest points are. A lot of Merrick is based around conquest, most of Merrick is based around conquest, and it was just very surprising to see what looked like an imbalance on the map.
I think it's an odd shape. It's workable. I've only had the chance to drop on it as far as with a coordinated 12-man. I think 3 or 4 times now, and it hasn't been bad. The approaches from the north side, it all depends on what it does kind of hang upon what the south team does. I think at the beginning, so if they mess up, they're really hosed because it takes a long time to get back up on top or go down. Well, it takes a lot of time to get back up on top of that platform if you choose to jump off of it. But a lot of the things you can do from the north, there's actually a lot of options. Especially on Conquest, not so much for Assault.
It is perhaps a little too easy to scout because you can just send a light straight up that center mountain, and you basically see everything.
True.
And it does add an interesting complexity that hasn't been in any of the other maps, where you can be directly on top of someone and be shooting through the openings on that platform that's right there in the center of the map, and it's pretty risky to be trying to stay underneath that platform unless you can jump jet up quickly, or if you can get those ramps, can take time to get up, as you mentioned before. So it does add an element that hasn't been in any of the other maps.
What's interesting is I haven't seen any teams successfully exploit the upper position, other than a flank that HBA pulled quite brilliantly on us, dropping against them the other day. However, that was coming from north side, not south side. But the dropping down actually presents a number of options for the south side team, and I don't think the top of that platform is well defensible against a team of coordinated snipers, especially if you have two. Unless you can push out on one side.
Yeah, the team that starts north can get a lot of jump snipers in D5. I don't know. They also have the advantage that I think they're not like closer to Theta, but they do have a lot more cover going into it. So I don't know. That's a kind of a factor, but usually I see a lot of the battles play out in D4.
I'm just glad it has color.
Yeah, I like
I think everybody's glad about that.
the decent size of it in the city setting. I really like I wanted something that was like River City, but just a larger version, because I like the urban combat stuff.
Still waiting on an actual urban map like Big City from MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, or Little Inner City.
The next
Inner City would be
confirmed
too
map
small.
is Lunar, right?
Yeah,
Okay, thought so.
Urban setting, yeah.
another classic venue.
I wonder if they'll implement low gravity kind of things. I wonder if that will affect jump sniping. Like if you jump up, if it takes you an extra 5 seconds to fall down.
That'd definitely be interesting.
Just speculation. Any more thoughts on the new map? Feel free to theorycraft. If not, we'll move on to something else.
Well, I have a different opinion about that platform. We've been pretty effective in using that to our advantage, and anybody who goes below it really is, I think, is significant. If you can hold that upper platform area, I haven't encountered sniping teams where someone holds a different area and puts us at risk while we're at the upper platform, and if they do, we can obviously just escape quickly to the lower ground. I think the tunnel there is interesting too, because it has sort of a T intersection, so you can go into it but come out. You can split your force there and flank groups. So we really appreciate the new map and like it.
It's interesting. The only game I played was actually an Assault. Have you guys had experience with Conquest? Does all of the fighting still take place on Kappa in D4? Is there enough of a range?
Yes.
There's enough of a range advantage that you can cover Epsi and Theta from there?
Yeah.
I think you usually lose Epsilon, or at least you have to fight for it. But as in my experience, teams typically do still try to hold that upper platform there and push down into Epsilon.
Usually the team that starts at Sigma will obviously get Kappa. Ones that start at Gamma usually get Epsilon. You can actually jump snipe from most of the platform on D4 down to Epsilon, and they don't have a lot of cover on it, so just the thought.
The other thing that's interesting about this map is the sizable increase in spawn location. So you now have lances that spawn almost entire grid sections away from each other. Have you guys noticed that affecting play, or is that just more, it takes a couple extra seconds to organize and get into a fight?
Yeah, it seems to slow down the early game a little bit as the different lances group up. I mean, once we got pre-made lobbies and things like that, we'll be able to choose where we spawn. But for now, it kind of just slows the game down by about 20 to 30 seconds while people form up.
That was my assumption as well.
Another comment on the map. I do like the asymmetric map design. It's pretty neat. They just need to kind of adjust where the base caps are for Assault.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I thought it was going to be like a completely different layout, but obviously it wasn't. I believe they mentioned that they made this map in mind with a new attack and defend game mode? Am I crazy, or was that actually a thing? Okay, I'm just crazy. That's fine.
I haven't heard about that.
Okay. Well, in that case, unless there's any more thoughts on the map, we'll move on to some more upcoming features. Let's talk about the Locust. So this is the only Phoenix mech that we have confirmed images for. We have confirmed loadouts, obviously, for everything. But the Locust looks tiny. Do you guys think the Locust is going to affect the game at all, other than it's going to be the fastest mech?
No, it's going to be useless for competitive play.
I agree.
That was kind of what I was thinking as well.
Yeah.
Unless
Like
the
quick,
hitboxes
unanimous
are
responses.
insanely broken.
It might adjust some of the mid-range or lighter drops so you can run heavier mechs up top, but other than that, I don't think it's going to do much.
If they fix the spider hitbox and break the locusts, then the locusts will come into play. Otherwise, they're out.
Yeah, there's no jump jets, no ECM on it, so it's
They can sit on the sidelines with the commandos.
yeah.
Hey, Commandos
The
have ECM. They're good
The
for
speed
something.
cap increase that has been thrown around at some point. I'm not
Yeah,
sure where.
what do you guys think about
Will
that?
probably affect the game more than the release of the Locust whenever they get around to it.
Last statistic I heard was the Locust was going to have a base unspeed tweaked of 167. Was that correct with max engine? I could be completely wrong about that. But
I think it was post speed tweak.
Yeah, post.
Post,
speed tweak.
okay.
oh, it's post speed tweak. Okay.
They
that's
also
not a
upped the
huge change
engine
then.
to 190 from 170 to compensate for the ability to fill critical slots with heat sinks. Because like you couldn't even use doubles on it that way.
Yeah. So how do you guys feel about the relaxed engine cap to make Locusts viable, quote unquote? I mean, do you like that they do stuff like that on an individual basis with each mech, or would you rather there be an overall system that conforms to everything?
Well, they have said that they're going to be doing a pass on all the lights, seeing which ones need that increased speed cap. I think really there isn't that much difference in difficulty to hit between 150 and 170, and that it's not going to make too much of a difference when you're facing top marksmen anyways. People who are bothered by lights now are going to be just as bothered later, and people who can handle it are going to be dealing with it just fine.
Yeah. And the difference on the battlefield doesn't seem to be that great in between, 120 and 150. Like, I don't know. I've been in a Jenner and been chased down by a mech that I know is slower than me, and just constantly thinking, how is he catching me? How is he catching me? So I feel like that 10 kph probably isn't going to make that big of a difference.
Yeah, in terms of light battles, I'd have to agree with that. It's not a huge margin, so
Yeah, just like Siri said, at the top levels of competitive play, lights have it kind of rough if they get in the line of sight of snipers, because the snipers are going to hit you probably 3 out of 4 times.
yeah.
So just moving that little bit extra speed is not going to help you. And if you're bringing, that thing's 15 tons lighter than a Jenner,
Yep.
it's a lot less armor. The thing's going to get murdered.
I think,
The speed's not going to save it.
is it an AC-20 to the back, either side of the torsos was a one-shot, I believe? Something like that.
Well,
the
not
important
that,
thing
a lot of
is-
things that run AC-20s are also running PPCs, and you get a lucky shot off, you're gonna get rocked.
Yeah,
Well-
the comparison isn't an AC-20 hit, it's 2 PPC hits, and like the only way to solve that is dropping heat scale even lower to 1 PPC, and that's just silly.
Yeah. It's already hard enough to manage having 2 ER PPCs in a mech, much less 3 if you're going over the heat cap.
2 ERs, what the hell are you doing?
I'm providing material for the show, Panic. That's what I'm doing. Spent hours just sitting in bad builds, being like, let's talk about this on War Room. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my god.
Do
Well, then
Dual ER
let's...
PPC Cicada, best Cicada.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Dual AC-20 Cicada, best Cicada. Get your no armor, it's naked.
Well, let's talk about the other Phoenix mechs then. How do you guys think those are going to add up in the current meta, or do you think they'll change the meta to a significant degree?
I've said this before in a couple of different places that I don't think the Thunderbolt or Battlemaster are going to bring anything new.